Hello and welcome back. Today I'll be doing some plant chores with my orchids. As you can see, the mealybug situation is getting out of hand. I'm also going to be checking out the roots and trimming off any dead ones and repotting them back into pumice. Let's get started. For mealybugs, I usually use hydrogen peroxide and just spray all over the orchid. The alcohol evaporates pretty quickly, so I don't really have a problem with water or anything sitting in between the leaves. These mealybugs keep coming back though, so I think I'm going to try using 70% alcohol next time. It's going to be a lot stronger, so hopefully they will just die out. I bought these little sticks from Amazon that have a little tiny brush tip. I used this to get in between the leaves and kind of scrape the mealybugs out. They get really deep in there, so I'm basically just trying to dig them out. I'm just going through every plant and taking off any mealybugs I can see. I think I had about 6 or 7 plants to take care of this day, so it did take a while, but I tried my best to get off all of the mealybugs that I could see. If I see any other ones on the leaves, I'll just do another quick spray and try and wipe everything down with a paper towel. Try not to reuse that paper towel because some of the mealybugs could still be alive, and if you wipe a different plant with that paper towel, it's just going to transfer the mealybugs onto that plant instead. So now I'm going to check all of my orchid roots and unpot them, see if anything is dead, and cut that off. I like to grow my orchids in pumice in a semi-hydro setup. It's just what works for living in Southern California for me. From my experience, it's hard for the orchids to live in such low humidity, and I also don't really like to mess with bark and moss and anything else that could degrade over time. Sometimes it takes a little bit of tapping the pot to get the orchids out if they are growing the roots through the draining holes on the bottom. This is when I realized it's kind of gross, so I got out my gloves. And now all I'm doing is checking all the roots, seeing if there's anything mushy or soft, and I'm just going to trim those off. If there's any brown dead stems, I'm also going to cut those off. I'm going to reuse this wick and put all the pumice and the orchid back into the same pot. I'm going to repot this orchid into a different pot now that I have the right size for this cachet pot. This is one of my ICU rescue orchids, so you can see it doesn't really have that many roots. Also, I try to remove any dead leaves, like the remnants of the dead leaves that could be on the stem, because you never know if a root is trying to come out, like this surprise root right here. I'm not going to show every single repot, but basically this is just what I did with all of them. I put them back into the pumice. I put them all back in the pot with the pumice, and I have a cachet pot on the outside. The rest of the video is basically just me removing any other dead roots, taking off any dead leaves, I do find that even though a root might look dead, like near the stem, if the root is green and alive at the end of the root, I will actually leave that on instead of trimming it off, because sometimes the end of the root that's alive will actually keep growing, or it'll like grow an offshoot root. You also want to take off any of the dead leaves on the stem, because if you have bugs, like I have the mealybugs right now, they will go in there and reproduce and grow, and you won't be able to see them. You can see some of my ICU orchids don't have that many good roots. They are starting to grow some, but the mealybugs aren't really helping. I'm going to cut off these stems just because I don't think it's really going to help the orchid grow. After I finished repotting everything, I will water in the semi-hydro setup. Basically just water enough until the bottom of the inner pot. I don't fill it up all the way like water culture would, so that it stays moist but not super wet. Also, I don't pot the stem super deep. I try to keep the stem above the pumice in case it gets too wet inside. I do have healthy orchids, so I just wanted to show some blooms that I have right now. I'm hoping the Mealybug orchids will bounce back, and if I can get rid of them, I can put them back into my greenhouse shelf. Right now I have them outside and isolated from all the other plants, but the greenhouse setup is kind of like the ideal environment for them. They have high humidity, higher temperature. The grow lights I have for all of my plant shelves, but in combination with grow lights, high humidity, higher temperature, and a fan for air circulation, I feel like the orchids just really take off and thrive in that kind of environment. I will have to trim some of the dead roots from my healthy orchids, so that might be the next orchid plant chore video. You can see some of the roots on my healthy orchids going a little bit crazy. That's it for this video, and thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please comment down below.